Most people have experienced that moment of panic. The power suddenly goes out. The lights flicker. The house falls silent. And within minutes, a new concern appears. What's happening inside the refrigerator? Every year, families throw away enormous amounts of food because of power failures, equipment breakdowns, and spoilage. Modern life depends so heavily on refrigeration that many people can barely imagine living without it. But there is a community that has been preserving food successfully for generations without relying on refrigerators at all. The Amish. On quiet farms scattered across the countryside, Amish families continue to use preservation methods so simple that some of them cost only a few dollars to set up. Methods that can keep certain foods fresh for weeks, months, and sometimes even longer. And the most surprising part? Many of these techniques were perfected long before electricity ever reached rural America. So how do Amish families store food through hot summers, freezing winters, and unpredictable seasons without depending on modern refrigeration? The answer reveals a forgotten system of self-reliance that many outsiders have never seen. And some of the lessons might be more valuable today than ever before. To understand the Amish approach, it's important to remember something many people rarely think about. For most of human history, refrigerators simply didn't exist. Yet families still survived. They stored meat. They preserved vegetables. They kept milk cool. They prepared enough food to last through harsh winters. Long before electric appliances became common, communities developed practical methods for keeping food from spoiling. The Amish never completely abandoned those traditions. On a typical Amish farm, daily life still follows rhythms that would be familiar to people from generations ago. Before sunrise, lanterns glow in farmhouse windows. Horse-drawn buggies travel along country roads. Gardens stretch behind barns. Root cellars sit quietly beneath homes. And food preservation remains a living skill rather than a forgotten hobby. While much of modern society depends on technology to solve every problem, Amish families often begin with a different question. How can this be done simply? That philosophy shapes nearly every aspect of Amish life. And nowhere is it more visible than in how they handle food. But that's only the beginning of the story. Because the real secret isn't a single technique. It's an entire system. When people hear claims about Amish food preservation, they often imagine some hidden invention or mysterious device. The truth is much simpler. One of the most effective tools costs almost nothing. A simple bucket. Combined with cool water, proper airflow, and careful placement, this humble setup can dramatically extend the life of certain foods. For generations, Amish families have understood something modern consumers often forget. Temperature is only one part of preservation. Humidity matters. Air circulation matters. Storage conditions matter. Many vegetables don't actually require refrigeration. Potatoes, onions, squash, pumpkins, carrots, and other crops often last longer when stored correctly in cool, dark environments. Some Amish households use inexpensive containers filled with damp sand to preserve root vegetables. Others use cool basement rooms. Some rely on spring houses, where naturally cold water flowing from underground springs helps regulate temperature. The materials are simple. The science is old. But the results can be surprisingly effective. And this is where things become even more interesting. Because the Amish don't just preserve food. They design their entire food system around preservation. Walk across many Amish farms and you may notice an unremarkable door built into a hillside. At first glance, it looks almost insignificant. Yet behind that door may be one of the most important rooms on the property. The root cellar. For centuries, root cellars served as nature's refrigerator. Built partially underground, they take advantage of the Earth's stable temperatures. During summer, they remain cool. During winter, they stay above freezing. The result is a naturally regulated environment ideal for food storage. Inside, wooden shelves often hold jars of preserved fruits and vegetables. Bins contain potatoes. Crates hold apples. Carrots rest in sand. Cabbages hang from beams. The air feels cool and damp. The atmosphere is calm and quiet. Many foods that would quickly spoil in a kitchen can remain usable for months in these conditions. The remarkable part is that the earth does most of the work. No motors. No compressors. No electrical grid. Just careful planning and an understanding of natural conditions. Modern refrigeration offers convenience. But root cellars offer something different. Resilience. When storms knock out power, the root cellar keeps working. When fuel prices rise, the root cellar doesn't care. When technology fails, the root cellar remains unchanged. And that reliability has helped Amish families weather countless challenges through the years. But food storage is only part of the picture. The next step may be even more important. Every summer, Amish gardens explode with abundance. Rows of tomatoes ripen under the sun. Beans climb trellises. Corn grows tall. Peppers brighten the fields. Fruit trees bend under the weight of their harvest. The challenge isn't growing food. It's preserving it. This is where canning becomes essential. Inside farmhouse kitchens, families gather around large tables. Jars line the counters. Water boils on wood stoves. Fresh produce waits to be processed. The work is careful and methodical. Tomatoes become sauces. Peaches become preserves. Beans are sealed in jars. Pickles fill shelves. By the end of the season, hundreds of jars may be stored away. Each one represents future meals. Future security. Future independence. Visitors are often amazed by the sight. Entire cellar walls covered with neatly arranged jars reflecting lantern light. Rows upon rows of food prepared months earlier. For Amish families, this isn't unusual. It's simply part of life. A tradition passed from one generation to the next. And what happens next surprised many outsiders. Because preservation extends far beyond fruits and vegetables. Before refrigeration became widespread, people developed numerous preservation techniques. Many Amish communities still use variations of these methods today. Drying is one example. Herbs hang from rafters. Apple slices dry slowly. Certain foods lose moisture, making it difficult for bacteria to grow. Another method is fermentation. Foods transform naturally through carefully controlled processes. The results often last far longer than fresh ingredients. Then there is smoking. In some communities, smokehouses remain part of farm life. Meat can be preserved using techniques refined over generations. Salt also plays a role. Long before electric appliances existed, salt was one of humanity's most valuable preservation tools. Combined with experience and knowledge, it allowed food to remain usable for extended periods. These methods may seem old-fashioned. Yet many continue to work remarkably well. The Amish don't preserve them because they reject progress. They preserve them because they remain useful. And usefulness is highly valued in Amish culture. If something works, there is little reason to abandon it. That practical mindset appears again and again throughout Amish life. But perhaps the most important factor isn't any individual technique. It's how all these methods work together. So long many outsiders focus on preservation tools. But Amish food storage begins long before harvest. It starts with planning. Gardens are planted with preservation in mind. Families know which crops store well. They understand seasonal cycles. They prepare months ahead. This creates a completely different relationship with food. Modern consumers often shop week by week. Sometimes day by day. Amish families frequently think in seasons. A successful harvest isn't just about today's meals. It's about next winter. It's about the months ahead. It's about making sure resources are used wisely. That long-term perspective changes everything. Waste becomes less acceptable. Preparation becomes more important. Skills become more valuable. The result is a food system built around stability rather than convenience. And stability has tremendous advantages. Especially during uncertain times. Because when disruptions occur, families with preservation skills often find themselves far less vulnerable. And that lesson reaches far beyond Amish communities. One reason Amish communities attract so much attention is their remarkable resilience. When storms damage infrastructure, Amish life often continues with relatively little disruption. When power failures affect surrounding areas, many Amish households continue functioning much as they did before. This resilience doesn't come from having more resources. It often comes from depending on fewer systems. Food preservation is a perfect example. Rather than relying on a single appliance, Amish families use multiple layers of protection. Root cellars. Canning. Drying. Fermentation. Cool storage rooms. Seasonal planning. Each method supports the others. If one approach becomes difficult, another remains available. This creates flexibility. And flexibility creates security. Modern life frequently optimizes for efficiency. Amish life often optimizes for reliability. Neither approach is perfect. But the contrast reveals something important. Systems that appear simple can sometimes be surprisingly strong. And this is where the story becomes especially relevant for modern viewers. Most people watching this video are not planning to become Amish. And that's not the point. The value lies in the lessons. The first lesson is preparedness. The Amish remind us that planning ahead can reduce stress when unexpected problems arise. The second lesson is practical knowledge. Technology is useful. But skills remain valuable. Knowing how to preserve food, grow vegetables, or store supplies creates options. The third lesson is resilience. The strongest systems are not always the most complicated. Sometimes they are the ones that continue working when everything else stops. The fourth lesson is community. Many Amish preservation projects involve entire families working together. Knowledge is shared. Responsibilities are divided. Traditions are passed down. In a world where many people feel increasingly isolated, that sense of connection offers an important reminder. And perhaps the biggest lesson is simplicity. Modern society often encourages more consumption, more complexity, and more dependence on external systems. The Amish frequently move in the opposite direction. Not because they oppose modern life, but because they carefully evaluate what truly adds value. That perspective can be surprisingly powerful. Even for people living very different lives. As evening settles over Amish farmland, the landscape changes. The sun dips below distant fields. Lantern light glows through farmhouse windows. The day's work comes to an end. Inside root cellars, shelves remain stocked. Jars wait quietly for future meals. Harvests from months earlier continue providing nourishment. The system keeps working. Not because it is new, but because it has been refined through generations of experience. In many ways, the Amish approach to food preservation represents something larger. It reflects patience, preparation, self-reliance, and an understanding that convenience is not always the same as security. Modern refrigerators are incredible inventions. They make life easier in countless ways. Yet the Amish remind us that there are other paths to resilience. Other ways to prepare. Other ways to live. Perhaps that's why these traditions continue to fascinate people around the world. They offer a glimpse into knowledge that once helped entire societies survive. Knowledge that remains surprisingly relevant even today. And perhaps the most remarkable lesson of all is this: the Amish have never needed refrigerators, not because they lack technology, but because they developed something many modern households have forgotten: a complete system built on preparation, skill, and understanding. When the power goes out, their food doesn't suddenly become vulnerable. Their plans were already in place long before the lights ever went dark. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed learning about Amish life and hidden traditions that most people never see, be sure to subscribe and join us for more fascinating stories from beyond the Amish world.